On Wednesday, Supreme Court justices heard the arguments in a Mississippi abortion case that could ultimately reverse Roe v. Wade. Now, there were dueling protests from pro-life and pro-choice groups that were outside of the courthouse yesterday, and there was a rally right here in downtown Chicago.
So we want to bring back our friend to Good Day Chicago, Professor Stephen Caliendo from North Central College, for some insights into what might just be the most consequential case we've seen in a generation. Good morning to you, Professor.
Good morning to you both.
So I sat through most of it yesterday. Mississippi didn't tiptoe around. They went straight after Roe. Did they deliver a legitimate argument in your mind?
Well, I mean, it's not for me to decide whether the argument was legitimate, but I think your question's good in the sense that how are the 9 justices going to respond? We do get clues, of course, throughout the oral arguments and the types of questions that the justices ask and the statements that they make throughout. Those were very interesting. I think if we're counting votes, I think we're counting votes the same way that the Mississippi legislature was counting votes when they set up this test case, and they believe that that the court is in a position at this point to, if not completely overturn Roe, significantly erode it.
Well, the government argued abortion is a woman's fundamental right. So is that claim a constitutional one?
Yeah, it certainly is a constitutional one. It has been for the last 50 years. And not only in the Roe case, but in cases that came after it, the court has affirmed a woman's right to her reproductive health and freedom up to a certain point. I think we sometimes forget that the Roe decision is a very complicated one. It had a lot of medical testimony in the briefings, and when the justices wrote, they wrote very clearly about certain points throughout gestation about when a woman's right is absolute, and then whether a state has a right to protect a woman's health, but also to protect the right of an unborn fetus as well. And so it's a complicated case, and those numbers of weeks certainly was an important point of discussion yesterday.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when Justice Kavanaugh seemed at one point to argue that this issue should be left to the states. In your mind, is that a likelihood? Is that the landscape here, that down the road it'll be each individual state that decides which way to go?
That's probably the best that the folks on the side who want to approve or uphold the law can hope for. In other words, there's not going to be a decision coming out of this case to prohibit the abortion procedure nationwide. What's more likely to happen is to say that Roe was improperly decided, and that therefore that a woman does not have this constitutional right, and then it would be up to the states. Of course, that was the case before Roe. Some states, the abortion procedure was legal, in other states it was not. And part of what was decided in the Roe case wasn't only the privacy issue, but also the equal access issue, that poor women didn't have the ability to travel to states where abortion was legal to have the procedure, where wealthy women were able to do that. And so if that happens, we're going to be coming back to those arguments as well.
Well, we do know that this court does lean heavily conservative, but can we really make any assumptions? I mean, yes, we listened to what they had to say yesterday, but there are some conservatives who will say that Amy Coney Barrett and as well as Justice Kavanaugh, that they don't always go the way that some people think that they might. In the past, they've surprised them.
That's right, Anita, and especially those two who have been on the court the least amount of time. We don't know all that much. What we do know about Justice Roberts is that he is not completely predictable in terms of his ideological outlook. We can't always assume from a president's party who nominated a justice how they're going to behave throughout their time on the court. And certainly Justice Roberts has shown that in a number of instances. And so in his questions yesterday were interesting in a sense, seeking some sort of middle ground. And so, you know, they're going to have a lot of deliberations behind the scenes. A lot of drafts of this decision will be circulated before we hear anything from them in a few months.
Dr. and Professor Stephen Caliendo from North Central College, good friend to us here. If we don't see you until next year, happy holidays.
Yeah.